Welcome back to our channel, guys. Today's topic is about evolution of the house and home from the old days to the present. The evolution of the house and home. Evolution of homes as structures, change in society with the development of homes, change in house design as new materials were developed. Housing changed our society. Nomadic tribes of extended families, settled tribes with the beginning of agriculture and animal husbandry, protection and safety, land ownership, development of towns and cities, and urban sprawl. Nomadic extended family groups. Humans live in groups gathering and hunting food and sharing it in a home base. The women collected roots, fruits, and vegetables while the men went hunting for meat. This allowed them to exploit many different types of food. It also encouraged the development of tools for hunting and transporting and cutting up food. Division of labor allowed a longer childhood period, increasing the opportunity for cultural knowledge to be passed on. Animal domestication. Domestication of animals occurred before plants because nomadic life was more common. The first animal to be domesticated was the dog during 12,000 years ago. Sheep and goats were domesticated in the Middle East 9,000 years ago. Camel and cows and horse lift, drag, and carry. The advantages: providing a steady income from a source of milk or hair. Animals became source of wealth. Now let's go to the temporary shelter, or what we call primitive dwellings. Shelter along with food and clothing is one of the most essential necessities. Materials such as straw or animal hide supported by wood or bones which could be quickly be erected and taken down. Provide shelter, it protects people from weather, it shields them against wild animals and insects. Provides also a place to rest, can move with animal migration and seasons. Plant domestication and agriculture. Wheat and barley were domesticated 10,000 years ago. Plant domestication probably occurred in two stages: weeding out competing species from naturally growing wild cereals, and two, collecting seeds and growing them. Advantages: crops could be traded, population became settled, and towns and cities developed. Land ownership. The permanent shelter. The first permanent shelters were probably made out of stones and tree branches. The stones were placed on the base of the structure to hold the branches in place. Man slowly learned to make simple tools that would allow them to build better structures, and later on these house structures gradually evolve and shape and form. The wood, wattle, and daub, more permanent logs cabin, were built using sawn logs. This was followed by wattle and the daub, where huts were constructed of poles and earthen walls. The filing of these wattle walls to improve wind resistance could be achieved with anything that came to hand, but most frequently may have been earthed with straw or leaves. Development of towns. Larger social groupings develop, not just extended families. Occupation developed to support food production. Opened up new technological opportunities like pottery to store food and carry water. Development of social rules, how to behave. Development of town planning, roads, wider genetic mixing, common services, water supply, rubbish disposal, bartering services for food. Catalhuyuk, Turkey, 6500 BC. The Catalhuyuk was one of the world's first town. It was built in what is now Turkey, not long after farming began. Catalhuyuk probably had a population of 6,000. Houses were made of mud brick. Houses were built touching against each other. They did not have doors, and houses were entered through hatches in the roofs. People slept on raised forms or raised platforms. The Sumer civilization towns of 4000 BC. By 4000 BC, farming had spread across Europe, and people started to stay in one place. The first civilization arose in Sumer, which is now Iraq. There were a number of city-states. Their houses were 2-story high, and they were arranged around the courtyard. However, poor people lived in the simple huts. Egyptian, 3000 BC, the ancient Egyptians started building flat-top houses made out of sun-dried bricks. Walls were painted and floors had colored tiles. Most wealthy houses had enclosed gardens with pools. Inside their homes, rich Egyptians had wooden furniture such as bed, chairs, tables, chests for storage. Instead of pillows, they used wooden headrests. Toilets consisted of a clay pot filled with sand, which was emptied gradually. Ordinary people lived in simpler homes made of mud bricks. Development of cities, further specialization of trades and services, hard laws and rules, complex social organization, and writings. Assyrians, 2500 BC, 600 years later, the Assyrians discovered that baking bricks in fire made them harder and more durable. They also started glazing bricks to strengthen them, make them waterproof. Greek housing, 8000 to 150 BC. Greek homes were usually plain and simple. They were made of mud bricks covered in plaster. Roofs were made of pottery tiles. Windows did not have glass and were just holes in the wall. Architecture, the Greek built temples and public buildings, which were dignified and gracious structures built to emphasize the cultural and economic prosperity of their society. The Persian housing, the rivals of the Greeks, were the Persians. Rich Persians lived in palaces, timber, stone, and brick. They had comfortable upholstered furniture such as beds, couches, and chairs. Tables were overlaid with gold, silver, and ivory. The rich also owned gold and silver vessels as well as a glass vessel. They also owned tapestries and carpets. The rich also had beautiful gardens. Our word paradise comes from the Persian word garden paradeda. The Roman housing, 340 BC to 250 AD. The Romans improved upon the techniques of the Greeks. Most houses were built around atrium or central court with rooms off the court. To introduce the concept of central heating using suspended floors with fires to create hot air circulation. Rural poor people live in simple wooden huts. But in Rome, poor people live in blocks and flats called insulae or insula. Most were at least 5 stories high, however, they were often badly built. The Roman architecture. The Romans developed concrete. It is composite of sand, aggregate, water, and mixed with lime base, kiln baked binder. The Pantheon and the Colosseum in Rome are a testament of durability of concrete. In the early Middle Ages, when the Roman Empire collapsed around AD 400 and Europe was overrun by Germans and Scandinavians, and they made improvements in building and construction. Buildings were supported by frameworks of heavy timber, and spaces between the wood were filled with clay. Usually, there was only one room shared by everybody. Poor people shared their huts with animals divided from them by a screen. During the winter, the animal's body heat help keep the hut warm. Half timber houses. Europeans began building half timber houses. With stone or brick foundation, tree trunks are placed at the corner of the houses, and strong wooden beams were used to support the house. By 1580, glass windows were becoming common, so are chimneys. However, poor people continued to live in simple huts. By 1630, brick or stone houses were becoming common. They are replacing wooden ones. Coastal dwelling, nearly 2.4 billion people, about 40% of population live within 100 kilometers of the coast. Three-quarters of the world's megacities are by the sea. More than 600 million people, around 10% of the world population, live in coastal areas that are less than meters or 10 meters away from sea level. Fortified towns, Carcassonne is the known fortified medieval city in France. Fortified island, the walled city of Saint Malo, had a long history of piracy, earning much wealth from local extortion and overseas adventures. The modern concrete, industrialized form of the binder, Portland cement, was patented as form of artificial stone in 1824 by Joseph Aspden in Leeds. That's Joseph Aspden. Council houses. By 1900, about 90% of the population rented their home. However, home ownership became more common. By 1939, about 27% of the population owned their own house. The first council houses were built before the First World War. More were built in the 1920s and 1930s. After 1945, many more were built and they became common. In the early 1950s, many homes in Britain still did not have bathrooms and only had outside lavatories. The situation greatly improved in the late 1950s and 60s. So, once was medieval architecture, now evolved into what we call modern housing or modern architecture, like these suburban or villages houses, prefab construction or prefab building, eco housing. We also have a new technology in 3D printed house. So we have here different house types for different conditions. In Alaska, it is called Inuit. The Inuit. In Mongolia, the Mongolian tent. In the Cappadocia or Cappadocia, that's a rock cut house. Also, we have the gypsy or the travelers or the drifter. Housing trends, urbanization. Today, around 55% of the world population is thought to be living in urban or area city. By 2050, UN predict that it will rise to 68%. So cities now will be congested. Concrete today was later combined with steel rods or mesh to create reinforced concrete. This, together with elevators, was the basis for multi-story building or skyscrapers, as well as dams, bridges, ports, city halls, university campuses, and shopping centers. Alright guys, this is the end of our topic for the evolution of houses or architecture from the medieval time or from the beginning of the history of architecture up to the present. Thank you so much, and don't forget to make comments on the video for your attendance and answer questions at the end of the video. Here are the 7 questions, guys. You can answer on the whole sheet of bond paper and send your answer right into our Google email. And the first question is, how did architecture evolve? Number 2, what influenced architecture? Number 3, how does architecture evolve with society? Number 4, why is it important to know the history of the evolution of architecture? And number 5, what are the 3 types of architecture? Number 4, make that number 6, who is the first architect in the world? At number 7, how did architecture begin in history? Thank you so much. Don't forget to comment and also subscribe the channel for your attendance. See you on my next video. Bye for now.